You're listening to 88.7 WLUW Chicago Sound Alliance, broadcasting from the campus of Loyola University. It's live from the Heartland, featuring Michael James, Katy Hogan, and Thom Clark. Today's guests are Marilyn Katz, Dawn Rose, and Stann Champion. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Ooh, a little bit of Working on It by Jay Dilla. Thanks to our engineer Jake for pointing out that music. We'll hear a little bit more later on. We welcome to the table this morning Marilyn Katz and Dawn Rose. We've been advertising this segment as the table has over 350 years of political organizing experience.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, me
Don't
too.
you?
I started when I was just born.
Half of it is mine.
That was
That
Dawn.
might be true.
That was Dawn Rose, and then you just heard
Also
Marilyn
known
Katz.
Some of it is,
And trying to
here.
keep this thing
Well, good
going is going to
morning,
be
everybody.
really interesting. When Network 49, as we mentioned earlier, did a straw poll about a month ago of the mayoral campaign, we came to one conclusion, which is that our members wanted a black woman for mayor. Lori Lightfoot came in first, Tony was close behind, and Amara was the third voter. No other candidates got a vote.
Yeah.
Even undecided did not get a vote. In the final election...
Undecided was leading at one point.
Well, it was in the
It was.
citywide polls, but
Yeah.
not in our neighborhood.
Yeah, undecided didn't vote in ours, is what happened.
What are the two folks who emerged from this, Tony and Lori, need to do to distinguish themselves so that we end up favoring one over the other over the next?
We were talking about it in the car. I mean, I think it's going to be nip and tuck all the way.
Totally.
So you have Tony, who has 40 years of political experience and has great accomplishments, but has also made
mistakes.
not only mistakes but enemies along the way, as we
Right.
all do. Lori is an unknown, but who will be revealed and has also made some errors during the way, and we'll see how they come out. I mean, I thought the map was fascinating.
Totally fascinating.
So Lori got the North Lakefront, small numbers, but significant. Tony got the South, and Willie got the West.
One of the things, though, that I noticed on the news coverage,
Give Don a chance to answer that
I
question.
will, but
Yeah.
okay, Don.
No, I was going to say that the difference is that Tony is more of a known factor. People have voted countywide for her, 3 times now, through primaries and generals, and is fixed. If you looked at what was happening with the numbers, and the reason that we saw momentum with Lori coming up toward the end was that the leaders at the time, which were Daley, Preckwinkle, and Mendoza, were all bunched up for the last 6 weeks of the five or 6 weeks of the campaign, between 13 and 15 points, and they didn't move because they were known factors. There was nothing new that they could really tell you about any of them. You know, they might, around the edges they could, and the only one we saw Lori's victory coming because she suddenly started moving from 3% to 10% in her own poll, to 12% in another poll, to 18% in another poll.
But
Okay,
let's
so-
have a grip here.
Yeah, so let's say who our candidates are.
Luckily, I don't have one.
Okay. And you have,
Mine
He's
is
been
Lori.
Lori
I'm
all the way.
outright,
Right, I know.
As long as Chicago women take action, I think, which is a microcosm of the
Right.
city. Well, a microcosm of progressives. So they were split pretty much between Lori and Tony, with a little bit of, I don't know why, Amara and
Younger folks were very attracted to her.
and some for Paul Ballas, which was like a little bizarre, but
Always.
I want us to get a little handle on this. That when I looked at the numbers, 16% and 15%, which was pretty bad, but when you take the registered voters, it goes down to 4 and 5%.
Yeah.
Right.
So the question is, will we have people? And I did a survey around the city. I would go into every shop. I was filming. I would ask every young person. Nobody was voting. I mean, very few, particularly people under 35. The biggest demographic for votes this time was,
sitting around the table here.
well, right.
Seniors.
Not in the 49.
No, 55. No.
The
You guys,
49
49, because of Maria Haddon. There was real enthusiasm around her, and you got a much younger demographic. The same thing with Andre in
40th.
40th Ward?
Yeah.
Right. You got, but it's still, it's puny. So the question is, will people be animated enough to actually get out and vote, and who's got the organization, the field operation, to also mobilize those votes that are to be had.
Right.
So always that's the question. Will people be motivated to vote at these days? And I mean, we were motivated in the 49th because of the race, so we had 10% higher turnout in 49 than the citywide turnout. But the turnout figures are also misleading in that everybody's registered now. Whether they want to or not, they're registered. So let's talk about turnout a little deeper. How do we get it in this race?
I just wanted to say one thing about the I just want to get this in. We were talking about the map, and on the news they keep talking about how Lori won the lakefront wards, but there were 5 or 6 wards up there that are west of the lake too that they don't
Yes.
mention. And so she did get beyond the lakefront.
Plus, Tony won the South Lake.
And but also the thing that I think you pointed out to me, Katy, was that both Lori and Tony, whether they won a award in the black community, they were also either in the second or third position.
But can we take a moment? Can we just take a moment, and particularly with the people around this table?
Yeah.
35 years ago, all of us were involved in the first black African-American mayor in the third largest city in the country.
That's right.
And here we are 35 years from now, and wherever we end up between these two women, we are going to see the first African-American woman elected to the mayor.
thrilling.
It's to become the mayor of the third largest city in America. You know, we have this reputation as the most segregated city in the country, but when it comes to picking leadership, black, white, and Hispanic have done it for Harold, produced Obama, and now the woman, the African-American woman, who will be one of the highest public officials in the land.
So are you saying will we deliver or not?
We are. We do.
We must deliver.
We stand and we do deliver.
All right. Donaldo.
Well, I agree with all of that, but to go back to this turnout figure,
Yeah.
I don't believe that a turnout increase of 10% will change the pattern any. Because if look, when they did the polling, and the polling turned out to be quite accurate.
Yes, amazingly.
Yes, and that polling did not suggest turnout of any size.
Right.
But the numbers came out about the same, and I would venture that had the turnout been
Well, except for the missing daily in the top two.
well,
Sorry.
I'd much rather be running against Daley.
I'm sure.
But I'm not sure, unless there is some special pocket of votes that's going to make a big difference.
Well,
That's a good point.
That the turnout factor, I don't believe, will affect the configuration.
Let me. Can I break this down a little bit more? Susanna got a lot of Hispanic votes, but there was not good turnout. It was
There is.
right.
Never is.
It was like minuscule. And
Unless
we don't
Chewy's
really
running.
know yet about the age demographics, except the Tribune has a big story this morning looking at why youth didn't turn out.
Right.
And it seems to be, well, they were confused about the process.
they
And
think, doing my own.
there were too many candidates
Too
that we
many
couldn't learn about.
candidates.
Yeah.
So when I did my own little filming around the city, interviews, which I like to do because I think it's better than polls. One, they were confused. They really didn't know. Secondly, the media that actually all the candidates were using was not intersecting with them.
Right.
They don't watch TV.
Right.
They're no longer on Facebook.
Right.
Maybe they tweet, but mostly they text. And so how are you reaching those folks? Thirdly, their lives, I mean, in some ways, and this is not a particularly good thing, they'll come out to demonstrations. Sometimes they come out to stuff, but an ongoing, sustained political
Practice.
practice they don't have, and they are
Well,
not
we're just
compelled
at the
to.
start of it for them. We're just at the start of it. I mean, they showed up in
They
droves
show up
in November.
and they showed
Thank
up
God.
to really protest Trump, which they understood
Right.
as having an impact on their lives. I think it's ironic that city government seems to them to have less of an impact than Donald Trump. Well,
I think one of the other factors that did not drive them out was that all of the candidates, for the most part, even McCarthy to a point, were running on basically the same issues.
Yeah, true that.
They were almost all
Amazingly.
for were almost all for an elected school board, a hybrid or a fully elected. They were all for most of them for aldermanic term limits. They were all for cleaning up this and that, and so there were little ideological differences among them.
There were differences amongst those who support or would like to throw out aldermanic prerogative.
Yeah.
There were differences between those who would like to fire or keep the police superintendent.
Well, there were, but these were not. I don't believe these are animating issues.
Well, no.
You know,
When you're
and-
looking for a difference, though, you
No, though,
Yeah.
I
You,
wanna-
you could find a difference, and people made their choices. Certainly.
Can I speak up for aldermanic prerogative? So I've lived in 2 cities besides Chicago, New York and LA. And New
And
York,
is this all going to boil down to you like aldermanic prerogative?
I do because
I'm
without,
not against that.
Because without Walter Burnett, we would not have cutouts for affordable housing.
So
And
why
I look
couldn't
at-
John Arini get his housing project done?
Bingo.
I'm sorry, I have lots of issues.
I'm just telling
with
you. I'm just telling you. New York. Have you been to New York lately? Not only can you not live in Manhattan, you can't live in Harlem. You can't live in Brooklyn. You can't live in Queens because the only people who control zoning are City Hall. And I would rather. Why didn't John Arena build a base? And also, he had a ward with.
Yeah.
One of them is now the alderman.
If you don't
I'm sorry, I
organize,
don't-
you can't win.
Well, I don't fault John Arena for not organizing. He was up against a pretty vicious, racist segment that turned out better, where they were more animated. John has been
I love
running
John.
a phenomenal
I love John,
community-oriented
but,
service
you
office.
either-
That was the biggest downer of the
Oh,
election
so-
to my
And
mind.
Ed Burke is the one who stopped his automatic prerogative, by the way, when it first came
Ed
up,
Burke
and
is
Ron backed
history.
him. So
Let me just tell you, Ed Burke is history.
automatic prerogative is fine until an alderman can't do it.
Do you think Ed Burke is history on?
I don't think the election is
believe
going to
it.
be decided on who's for aldermanic prerogatives.
Right.
No, that's true. Thank you.
So
Right.
Willie Wilson is meeting. Willie Wilson is meeting with both candidates this weekend. If he endorses one, will the church lady voters go with his choice?
It's an interesting question.
And is there any way he would endorse Lori, given his basis? that
My bet,
church vote?
did you know what he's doing? He's doing he started a Facebook poll.
Right.
And so who knows? I mean, Willie is
Willie did to find out where he should go.
Yes.
I love that.
But here's the thing.
He's not on Facebook.
Well, he is, but I doubt that most of his constituents
course not.
and his voting bloc is on Facebook. So,
So is he talking to you and me?
We don't know whether he is going to have personal coattails, whether his endorsement is going to move all of his constituency, probably some. But his constituency was, not based on his ideology.
Exactly.
And so, we don't know where it's going to go.
let's-
We do know that there is a segment of the African American community, a certain religious segment that is anti-gay. So,
Right.
I mean, that's a given.
And that's what's all over the news. They're talking about that on, public TV last night.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but of course
So-
they're going to focus on that. The question is, I know that Tony's come out against any kind of homophobia, whether that has an impact. You've got Mays Jackson and a voice in the black community that speaks those church ladies, but really is anti-Tony. So let's talk about also the Daley voters, and let's talk about the Jeremiah Joyce voters.
I was getting to that.
Right.
I was
I mean,
starting
those
with
are two
Willie.
big-
I want to go on to Susanna first before we talk about.
Let's have some more of that great music. Jake wants to play it. I could tell.
Are you going to tell us something in between?
No, we're going to come back with Don Rose and Marilyn Katz and keep grilling down on this election. Come on, you got a minute, baby. Make the most of it.
I can't be.
I'm sorry for that. That was also from the Donut of the Heart, Jay Dilla, who is no longer with us. And we got schooled by Jake, our own engineer, today about this fellow. Sweet little music. We are talking with Marilyn Katz and Don Rose. You are listening to Live from the Heartland, WLUW 88.7 FM, Chicago Sound Alliance. Sorry about missing that. All right, back to the election and what's going to happen in 5 weeks. Tom, you got a direction you're going with this version?
Where do you think Susanna Mendoza voters will go?
All over the place. Depends. I would think it depends largely on whether Chewy comes out. I think that's the only thing that would give it any direction. Otherwise, it'll split up the way it split up before.
I think we're still waiting for both Chewy and Louie.
To speak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
both of
yeah,
them.
yeah.
So,
You know, Chewy does not have the coattails he once had, but he's got coattails. But, you know, the Hispanic vote's been about 14, what percent? Around, really low.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's always the the people don't realize the big difference between the size of those wards and the turnout. The population is a third, as everybody says, but the traditional Hispanic turnout is probably be 12%.
when I looked at Ed Burke's ward boundaries, which I hadn't looked at for a while, that panhandle of 5 precincts is why he won. It's all the white votes attached to his
Exactly.
Right.
Hispanic base, and it's
But
really
that didn't surprise anyone.
no.
Most
I
people
hadn't
thought-
realized when you see the picture, it's really stunning.
But the thing to remember about Burke is that he is done, whether he wins re-election or not. He is no longer the elder statesman who can go around making speeches about history and interpreting John and my youth for us, which was always offensive. He's no longer. You're not going to go to him to fix a deal because.
On the other hand, he was the most consequential figure in the election.
How do you figure that?
because
he
six
changed,
candidates had
he
to re-
changed the terrain.
Oh, that's true. Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely.
He took the Burke episode before Tony was polling something close to 30%.
Yes.
And
you're
was in
right.
a strong lead. And we weren't sure where Daley was coming in. Mendoza was just coming in late. After the Burke episode, and particularly following a week later, the episode with Danny Solis, all of those figures were knocked down, and that's where they were all between 12 and 15%, and they stayed there.
Didn't it surprise you? It really shocked me.
And
that-
it gave an issue for a Laurie to rise and for Amara to run on and so on.
Didn't it surprise you, however? I mean, I was shocked by Tony's staff, which, I mean, if you or I had been running our campaign, we would have said, whatever the friendship, Tony has been the most consistent vote against Ed Burke for 40 years. And her campaign never got
didn't
out and
use it.
said that. I couldn't
They're
understand.
beginning to use it more. They're beginning to show her underpinning her beginnings as a progressive, as an undoubtedly progressive, and beating the
I was
boys
just
at their game and all that sort
really
of thing.
shocked by that.
But yeah, they were, and plus, what's his face coming out with the comment that he had to leave on, Scott, my good buddy. We won't go there.
We won't go there. Oh, my
Okay.
God. Was he your friend?
Where
a buddy.
where are the Daley votes going? I don't see him making an endorsement, but maybe he will. But I don't know if his voters go with his endorsement either.
I
Are they going to stay home?
agree. I would say a large number of them will stay home. They're going to have a very hard time choosing between two black women. The only indicator of where some of those wards may go, at least the analysis I've been looking at, is who came in after them, who got the most, who Tony or Laurie, and in most of those Daley Joyce wards, Laurie came in second or third.
Interesting. Okay.
So my only, I can't say this is predictive, but when you look at that, if this were a ranked voting system,
That's a
Laurie would be up around 48% right now.
So I think that's John's comment is really interesting. I mean, I don't necessarily agree. I think probably Daley's votes split along a couple ways. I think the northwest and southwest sides may stay home. Lakefront is going to be, I think, probably split more because a lot of them are upper class business folks who will see Laurie as untested, Tony as a known. But I will say this. I mean, I just don't think we can know that. If there had been ranked voting, it would be a quite different election.
Yeah. What do you think it would have been?
Well, it's clear it would have been Laurie.
Laurie, Tony again.
Yeah.
It would have been.
Let me ask, what happens to county government if Tony wins the mayoral race?
Good.
It goes probably to Larry Sufferton.
That would be great.
Not Mr. Daley?
No, not Mr. Daley.
So you agree, Don?
Probably so.
So I would like to try to cover 14.
But I think she's doing such a good job as president of the county board that she ought to be allowed to fill out her term.
Well, that brings
That's
up.
so sweet.
I
that
thought there
brings
should
up
be a deal.
very important thing.
Let's make that the sweetest way to respond.
Let me just say one thing on that. I know I tend to want the last word, but it
This
means
is not
that
the last word.
I know in this
Go
little.
ahead.
I've said to both campaigns, do not make this a scorched earth campaign, because if Tony wins, if Lori wins, she's got to work with Tony.
Right.
And we don't want another 4 years of Tony versus Ron,
No, it
which was
cannot be
very,
scorched
very
earth.
difficult. We didn't get that far.
But
So
Tony
this is a
came
re-
out fighting right away,
Yep.
being critical of Lori, where Lori took a higher road, I thought.
Well, I think that's because nothing's known about Lori, and her campaign said, time to show. One of the reasons why she came up is while Susanna and Lori were attacking Tony, and everybody was attacking each other. Lori, nobody said a word about her. I mean, she was kind of stealth through.
Tom, go ahead.
So we all mourn the loss of John Arena. Moreno lost. Burke won. We've already covered the 49th ward. We have 14 contested races, but I want to give you a chance if there are other ones we ought to be looking at. But this has to be rapid fire. Starting on the north side, O'Connor Vasquez.
O'Connor got something like 35%, which is always a very dangerous sign. Under 40% for an incumbent signifies danger, but it's not 100% predictive.
Okay.
Martin versus Negron in the 47th ward.
I think probably Martin.
Martin
but
easily.
Negron, wait, let's just talk about this. This is a really interesting ward.
It sure is.
You had an African American and a Puerto Rican Negron, Matt Martin, African American, Eileen, 2 Harvard lawyers. Just like, whoa, and they all are
That's
buying
the
for
mayor's
all.
ward.
Laurie carried it big.
Yeah.
Kappelman, Lalonde.
Probably
46.
Kappelman, but
Unfortunately,
Unless a bunch of people from Maria's campaign go and work for Lalonde.
Is Michelle Smith in danger in the 43rd?
she is in danger.
slight danger,
It's
slight
like-
danger. This guy's got tons of money. And
if he aggregates-
and she came in just under 40%.
Right.
So she's not. I think she's in danger. I'm not sure she's going to lose.
In 39, where Loreno is retiring, who knows anything about Nugent and Murphy?
I know about Murphy.
Go
I
to it,
think
girl.
he'll come through.
I plead ignorance.
I think he'll come through. He's got more.
Is that really part of the city?
organization on the ground.
Is that
In
really part of the
33,
city?
Deborah Mell really did
Struggling
not
for
do
her
well
life.
against Sanchez. What's going to happen there?
I'd vote on
Toss-up.
but I'd vote on Mel.
I think so too. But
She'll have a
it's
better ground
toss-up.
game.
Yes.
Santiago Cardona in 31.
No clue.
No.
No clue.
Rebollas and Gutierrez in 30. I bet we end up looking at it a little closer as things develop.
That's going to be close. We should have Gutierrez on the show.
She's
think
great.
that-
She's great.
I think Gutierrez is going to make
She
it.
might pull it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
In 25, Danny Solis has a couple of long-term Latino organizers who are really going at each other.
Acevedo.
And Siglo Lopez.
Yeah. Cicho. I don't
Can't
know.
call that.
I don't know what that's going to be.
I don't either.
Again, we should have one of those on the
The Brookings Empire out in the 21st Ward.
We'll
Is
maintain.
he going to survive again?
I suspect so.
By the skin of his teeth.
There were 9 candidates trying to replace Willie Cochran in the most corrupt ward in the city, the
I
20th.
would say that Nicole has a really strong organization. Taylor's going to get the older black vote.
Hard to-
Nicole's going to. It's hard to say.
Is Nicole Johnson?
Nicole
Yeah.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're both fine.
In
They're
the
both
10th,
great.
we have Coleman and Folks.
I bet on Coleman.
I think it's going that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hairston Callaway, and I'll point out quickly that we are really sorry that Gabriel Piemonte didn't make it into the second slot there. But Hairston, I thought, would be in more trouble.
I thought she was. She's got too many votes to.
But she's got too many
lose.
lives.
Yeah.
She's probably. I'd probably bet on her.
Yeah.
But for organization,
You know, in the context of our losing population and all that, I'm really surprised that one issue that hasn't come up is the census and redistricting. Is that something that's not going to affect us that much?
Inside baseball. I mean, it's
It's
important.
real
but
inside
it's
no,
baseball.
right? It's
baseball.
really inside.
Yeah.
And,
it's-
and let me tell
there's
you,
so many other issues before it. in
and
this
it's.
election.
I hope it doesn't come up because there's a nasty fight brewing between African American aldermen and
That's why
Latino
I
aldermen
asked the
and
question.
I don't even.
That would be exacerbated terribly by this so-called reform idea of cutting the city council in half.
Oh, absolutely. Horrible idea.
Horrible
By the
idea.
way,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
if you
That was
wanna
a lead
talk about
balloon,
that,
wasn't
Good luck, Michael.
Cats and Rose. Your predictions on the shape of the council and what it'll mean. Will it be a stronger council and a weaker mayor? What do you guys see in the next 6 months to a year?
I wish we could use a few foul words on this.
Go ahead. No.
Okay, get ready with the button there, Jake. Get ready with the flip button. No, he's like,
I think it's
don't
be
do it.
I think it's going to be tremendously progressive, but split 25 different ways. I think it's going to be very difficult to govern and to lead, and that it's going to be chaotic and a lot of fun.
Wow.
But
Whoever
I think it's
is
gonna,
mayor is going to have some control over that council. Let's remember what the mayor's power is. He gives out the goodies, and at least half and probably more than half of that council, whether they call themselves progressives or regressives or whatever the hell, are going to go for the goodies.
Well,
let's
it's
hope.
very
Let's hope we don't have another unknown gets into office and flips over, i.e., Jane Byrne. Let's not have somebody who doesn't
we could
know.
blame John Rose.
I know. I wasn't going to go there,
I
Marilyn.
don't blame
was-
Don Rose for that.
I do not blame him. I blame
Seemed like a good idea at the time, and if it weren't for that, Harold would not have been
I agree.
elected the next time.
That's true. Exactly.
So it really kind of looks like us. Like we go apart, and then this group comes together, and then we
Yeah.
have little splits. But
I
in the
think-
end, we'll be fine.
We've got a new model to form this time around, and we should all have our hands in. We were called in the 49th Ward. This group was called the OG. The old guard. That's not what they meant, but what they call OGs. I was very touched.
I thought that
So
stood
we
for
have a role
ogres.
to play to herd people into sensible stuff. And
Well,
I
it's
gotta
really
cut.
interesting. I mean, Cook County, Chicago Women Take Action is a really microcosm of that with 20-year-olds and 85-year-olds.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're good enough at it yet, and I don't know that we're very good at teaching and sharing and arguing. I think that we tend to pander too much, and we need to
agree.
teach these newbies how to debate and that it's okay.
Hey, you
When
two, will you come back after this is over and do a
See
mop up?
how you score this
Yeah.
time.
see
Or a
what-
mea culpa.
Yes.
I thought it was significant that on election night, the TV camera showed Rahm right next to Tunney. And it got me wondering, what is
Yes.
he going to do next? Is he going to get Lincoln Yards through? Is he going to get Resco TIF done? Or should all those things go on hold and he just goes and becomes a commentator on the Ricketts new TV station?
No, but he'd be an anti-comment. He was with Tunney. Can we, for a minute, just really?
Wait, we got a guy.
Can we just say,
Wait.
1 minute.
yes, Tom Tunney, kill the Ricketts? I mean, for the Ricketts to try to buy an alderman was disgusting, and now they're teaming up with Sinclair Broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're going to be
screw
the
them.
right. They're going to be the
Sorry.
pretty face of this hideous network. Not good. Not good at all.
Not good at all. Hey, thanks you guys.
Marilyn.
We've got one of our favorite guys to follow up with you, Stann Champion in the blue room, green room, and you guys only get the red room. Bless your hearts.
That's the right color.
All right. Thank you for coming on. We'll see you on the campaign trail.
You're listening to Live from the Heartland on WLUW
right.
Chicago,
Come on in,
88.7
Stan.
FM, and WLUW.org. Please like us on Facebook, and you can see our shows archived on YouTube/Heartland Media.